If you're holding Bitcoin right now, earning zero, while inflation is eating at 8% of your purchasing power every single year, you're not investing, you're slowly going broke in slow motion. And you know what? Here's what pisses me off. BlockFi promised you 6% on your Bitcoin, then went bankrupt. Celsius promised you 8%, then stole everyone's money. And FTX was safe until it wasn't. But what if I told you there's a way to earn 8 to 12% on your Bitcoin without trusting these scam companies, without selling a single Satoshi, and without giving up custody of your coins? I'm about to show you the exact mechanism that I use to turn $100,000 of dead Bitcoin into $1,000 per month in pure income. And the beautiful part, your Bitcoin stays your Bitcoin the entire time. Look, I need you to understand something that nobody wants to admit. Every single day that you hold Bitcoin doing nothing, you're not just missing out on income, you're taking massive risk for free. Think about it. If Bitcoin drops 20% overnight, you eat that loss. If Bitcoin gets hacked on an exchange, you lose everything. If the government bans crypto platforms, you're screwed. You're taking all of that risk right now, today, for zero reward. You see, it's like owning a rental property, dealing with all of the headaches, the maintenance, the toilets, the taxes, the liability, but refusing to collect rent. It's insane when you think about it. My name is Jake Call. Over the past 2 years, my team and I have helped over 300 investors deploy more than $50 million into DeFi strategies that actually work. And today, I'm going to show you a simple 3-step process that turns your lazy Bitcoin into a consistent income machine. But here's the best part. This is not some complicated DeFi degen Ponzi scheme strategy. This is so simple that I could teach it to my 17-year-old nephew. Let me show you how exactly this works. Okay, so here's what most people have. 100 grand of Bitcoin just sitting there, doing absolutely nothing. Now, take a look at this. At 8% per year inflation, and this number is derived from not only Bitcoin's native intrinsic inflation, but also the fact that thousands of cryptocurrencies are being minted every single month, meaning that new tokens pop up, that pushes down the overall dominance of Bitcoin, so Bitcoin loses purchasing power as well because of the sheer amount of new tokens coming in. But your $100,000 of purchasing power becomes $92,000 after year 1. After year 2, it's $85,000. After year 3, it's $79,000. And after year 4, it's $73,000. And after year 5, it is $68,000. And remember when everyone thought that BlockFi was the solution? Well, look at this headline right here. Crypto firm BlockFi files for bankruptcy as FTX fallout spreads. All of these customer funds were frozen. And then there's Celsius, which revealed that they were missing billions of dollars back in 2022. When you give your Bitcoin to these companies, you know what you become? You become the yield. They're lending your Bitcoin out, making 20% or something like that, paying you 6% and pocketing the difference, yet they still can't be responsible with their money because they're just way too damn greedy. Now, what I'm about to show you is just one strategy from our complete DeFi income system. If you want to see how we generate 40 to 60% annually across an entire portfolio, not just Bitcoin, I have a free 30-minute training that breaks down our entire flywheel system. The link to the YouTube video is going to be at the top of the description, and I'm also going to leave it at the very end of this video. So after you watch this video, make sure you check that one out if you're serious about getting into DeFi income investing. But first, let me show you how this Bitcoin strategy works. So there's a 3-step process, and it's actually stupid simple. A lot of people like to make it seem super complex because they have something to sell you or because they want you to stay on centralized exchanges. Well, there's platforms like Aave. Platforms like Aave are lending and borrowing markets, meaning that you can take out collateralized loans. So when I say collateralized, I mean if I lend out 100 grand, right? People can borrow that. But of course, in order to be able to borrow that, you have to lend out money as well. So if I'm lending out 100 grand, I can borrow probably up to about 80 grand or so. Now, we don't want to do that because there's liquidation risk. And ultimately, that scary word basically means that they just sell your collateral to cover your debt in the instance where those two get too close, basically, where the values are similar. Now, to combat that risk, we're just not idiots, right? We're not going to borrow way too much money against our Bitcoin because we're not greedy, okay? So we'd go over to Aave and we'd supply 1RAP Bitcoin or CBBTC or whatever derivative of Bitcoin that you're using, basically. Say 100 grand or something like that. And then we would borrow 30% of that value because that's a safe loan to value, because ultimately Bitcoin would have to go down 60% plus from current prices in order for you to be liquidated. And if you're expecting Bitcoin to go down 60% plus, you should probably rotate into stables. But after we deposit that Bitcoin as collateral, we can go and borrow stablecoins. So we'd borrow that USDC. Again, we deposit 100 grand, we'd borrow 30 grand of USDC. Now, what this does is this essentially puts us in a fixed asset, right? We're holding 30 grand of USDC, which stays 30 grand. Now, obviously, we have to pay about 5% in interest, which ultimately there's no set payments or anything like that where it's like every month you come in or anything. You just simply repay that loan. You come in whenever you're ready to repay and you repay. The thing is that interest accumulates day by day. So your debt just goes up and up and up and up and up, obviously, until you start to repay it. Then, of course, it's going to start to go down a little bit. But now that we have 30 grand of USDC, we can take that and we can put it into something called a liquidity pool. Now, a liquidity pool is facilitating trading, basically. So that means that you are allowing people to trade Bitcoin and USDC for each other because that's the liquidity pool that we're going to choose. Ultimately, in this liquidity pool, you have both Bitcoin as well as USDC. So if somebody comes in here and wants to buy Bitcoin, they are taking Bitcoin out of this pool and they're putting USDC in this pool. If somebody wants to sell Bitcoin, they're putting Bitcoin in and they're taking USDC out. Now, again, as a liquidity provider, you have to front that Bitcoin and receive the USDC, or you have to front the USDC and receive the Bitcoin. You're taking that exposure. But the thing is, since we borrowed USDC, we don't really have to worry about the impermanent loss that you can occur in here. Yes, it is a risk, especially if you're expecting immense downside potential. But if you're expecting immense downside potential, you probably shouldn't be holding Bitcoin in the first place, which is why it's important to align your strategy. But diving into something like wrap Bitcoin to USDC will net us about 40% per year. In this instance, it's currently doing 47% per year, right? So when we think about that, that's 14 grand per year in income that we're producing off of wrap Bitcoin to USDC. Now, we put up 100 grand of Bitcoin initially, which means that that's about 14%. And keep in mind, all we have to do is repay that USDC. And obviously, as Bitcoin continues to go up, like we are expecting that it will, say it goes to a price of $120,000, we will have a little bit of price profit as well. In this case, we'd have $407 of price profit, meaning that we repay the 30 grand, we keep the $407, and we also keep any earnings that we generated during this time. So if we were in here for, say, 90 days, we generated a total of roughly $3,500 in earnings, meaning that we profited 4 grand over the course of 90 days, and we had full Bitcoin exposure as well because we're lending out that Bitcoin, which has full market exposure. Now, this income we can take and we can repay the borrow. We could take that and we can use it to generate more income by compounding it, or we could use it to increase the collateral. There's a couple different options there. And ultimately, that's what I cover in my DeFi flywheel system, which is going to be the video linked at the top of the description. But to take a look at how this compounds over time, we're going to use the number of 12%, a conservative number in this instance, right? Assuming that we are compounding back in the portfolio, that income grows from $1,000 per month all the way up to about $1,100 per month over the course of 12 months. It's not crazy, but it's sustainable and consistent growth, and it's something that you can rely on. Now, I would not recommend taking this income out and throwing it into your bank account. Why? Because you're not going to build wealth that way. You're going to build wealth by taking that income and compounding it back into the ecosystem. And when I say compounding, I mean one of the options that I mentioned earlier, increasing collateral, repaying debt, or even increasing the overall position size to generate more income. Now, I want you to imagine something for a second. It's 1 year from today. Bitcoin has gone up 50%, which is great. But your friend who watched this video, they made the 50% gain plus collected $10,500 in income that they reinvested. So while you made 50 grand, they made $65,000 plus. 5 years from now, that gap isn't 15 grand. It's well into the six figures, maybe even more. And you see, honestly, this is how wealth gaps are created. Not because some people are smarter or luckier, but because some people understand that money needs to work, not just sit there. Holding Bitcoin in a cold wallet or even on a centralized exchange, which is worse, is the equivalent of stashing dollars under your mattress, or the equivalent of not investing your dollars. Every month that you wait is $1,000 that you're not collecting if you have 100 grand of Bitcoin. That right there is more than a car payment. That's groceries. That's your kid's college fund right there. So look, I've shown you exactly how to turn dead Bitcoin into monthly income. No bullshit, no hype, just math and proven strategies. You could try to figure this out yourself, spend months learning, probably lose money making mistakes, or watch that flywheel video that I'm going to leave on the screen right now. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm Jake Call. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.